Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very, very special edition of the show. It's not Sunday Night Live, it's Saturday Night Live today. Thank you, NFL. You are, of course, as always, awesome. So welcome, everybody. And I kind of decided to do this at the last minute, well, relatively last minute, kind of earlier this evening, just talking to my good friend Mike Neighbor from Peace Valley Audio. And I was well aware that it was Super Bowl Sunday this week because I have been following it this year. I didn't really pay too much attention to it last year because I was actually pretty busy. And so I didn't really pay too terribly much attention to who was in the Super Bowl, albeit after my show finished, because I did a show last year, which attendance was obviously lower because of the game, but I did go and watch it, and it was really rather a good game. The entertainment sucked, pretty much, but the game itself was fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a good Super Bowl. I think we've got two really good teams. Should be a really good game. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be obviously extremely late here, so I will be staying up extra late, and then I shall be super tired tomorrow, on Monday, I should say. So I'll be taking my kids to school on Monday morning in my sleep, I should think. So that's... sounds like elevator music. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that, I think. Bobby says, no, it doesn't. It's too loud. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's a piece called Softly Spoken that I wrote in 2017. Originally, it was intended for a brass band, and that I have worked with for a lot of years. And in fact, a lot of years, going back to the 1980s, I've worked with this brass band, and I wrote this piece for them, and decided that it could stand a rhythm section as well. So I reworked the piece so that it had a rhythm section to go with it as well. So there you go. So it's just originally just for a brass band, and I, as I say, kind of dressed it up a little bit, and it was all recorded in my studio. And it worked out really well. So I recorded the drums with a single microphone. I recorded the bass with a mic. It's an upright bass. I recorded it with a mic, and also used the pickup as well. So, blended the two together. And everything else, as I say, was recorded a bit at a time, couple of people at a time, until we had I think it was 15 or 16 people involved. And we recorded them two at a time because the old studio, as you know, was tiny. So I could only fit two people in at once, plus me sitting here. So that was how that was recorded. And it worked out all pretty well. I had to do a fair amount of editing to make sure phrases ended exactly even. But I think the results speak for themselves. It's a pretty good piece. Samuel Edwards says, very nice, I liked it. Well, thank you very much. Andy says, my Saints got robbed. Yeah, I think they probably did, actually. So there you go. And the SSL plugins are worth $14.99 from what I've heard. Yeah, the SSL plugins are awesome. Truth is, though, you need to have a reasonably good computer, actually. And your RAM needs to be pretty robust. If you're going to run the Slate plugins for what they're worth. You know, if you're really going to make the best use out of the Slate plugins. I think you're talking about the Slate ones. Orange just says, I like that opening track. It's got that Sleepy New York late night vibe. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? It kind of does have that New York kind of sound to it. Mostly because I think my harmonic palette and my sense of orchestration kind of comes from the East Coast rather than West Coast. So there you go. So anyway, that's that piece. So I decided to do this kind of show at the last minute. I do have something at least semi-planned, and the rest of it is going to be up to you guys. So I have noticed that just recently there have been a few questions about how you do sidechaining in Studio One. And I think Chris Harwood over at Deer Creek Audio had done a little video on sidechain compression and how you can use a compressor in a sidechain mode to duck the bass out of the way of the kick drum, which is really, really useful when you've got a very dense rock song or something electronica and you want to get the bass sound out of the way of the kick so that they're not fighting each other and you don't end up losing the real weight of the kick drum. It's a good idea. And you can do it real subtle so that it's something that is kind of felt rather than heard, not really discerned, but certainly you know that you can hear both the kick and the bass and they work well together, and sidechaining one to the other really does that job. And so yeah, go and check out his video on that. There are a few others on the subjects of sidechaining, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to sidechain a gate, kind of doing a similar kind of thing, but this time in maybe more of a kind of minimalist dance trance style, which is not really my thing, but it was kind of like, for me, it was kind of like a really obvious application of sidechain and using a gate, because I was thinking, must be other ways in which you can use a sidechain to do something. And there probably are plenty of applications. Obviously, there's the broadcast application where you are sidechaining the music bed to your voice so that it ducks out of the way of your voice when you speak into the mic. Radio stations use that all the time, and so that very obvious application, and that's really done with a very aggressive compressor rather than a gate. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a gate to kind of create that throbbing bass kind of effect, so the bass swells on the upbeat and yet is suppressed entirely by the kick drum on the quarter note pulse. So that's kind of what I'm gonna do. Bobby says Johnny the SSL on the Gobbler site. Okay, I should go and check that out. I take it that's actually SSL. I know that they've released plugin versions of their consoles, which I think is fantastic that SSL have done that. And you say it's $14.99 for the SSL plugins themselves. Well, that's quite cool. I've got the Waves ones, and they're pretty good. You can get the Brainworks ones for a reasonable price as well. And they are modeled after I think the Brainworks ones are modeled after a very specific couple of SSL consoles. And I think the Brainworks ones, I think what they did was they modeled actually all the channels on the console. So even if you've got just one channel strip, you're getting the cumulative effect of all of the channels and the crosstalk and everything else that you get with that. So I think that's how the Brainworks ones work, and they are extremely good. I haven't used them, but I have seen them in action, and they sound awesome. I love the sound of the SSL. It's kind of where I got my start, was on an SSL 4000, the E console, and that was really where I got my first taste of mixing and loved it, and instantly loved it. Instantly loved being able to throw up faders and adjust EQ and compression. Reaching right across the console to do it was just awesome. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love having a Series 3 mixer, is because I can do all of that and control the plugins in Studio One to do it. It's fantastic. So yeah, 72 channels. Yep, that's right. So Andy says the sidechain baffles him. Well, it baffled me for quite a while as well. It's not easy to do in Cubase, and that was really probably where I was the first time I tried doing it, which was in Cubase, being a long-time Cubase user. And it's a little bit convoluted. Other DAWs, it's not quite so convoluted. Like the way you do it in Pro Tools is actually... if there is anything logical about Pro Tools, that's probably the most logical thing that they have. Everything else, I think, from my experience in Pro Tools, I'm just pulling myself in a little bit further so I don't get sore back. You know, other things that you get in Pro Tools, I think, like how you create auxiliary tracks and that kind of thing, I think is just ludicrously clunky. unnecessarily overly complicated. But the way you set up a sidechain is actually really simple, comparatively, in Pro Tools. But in Studio One, I think it's even simpler than that. And so that's what I'm going to kind of show you how to do. I'm going to show you how I've done it, and then we're going to take it all apart and do it again, so that you actually get to see the process. So I'll show you the results first, and then I will show you how to actually put it together. And it's so simple. Really, when you actually set up this, once you set up the sidechain and you've got the compressor responding to the sidechain, then the only thing you have to do is just dial in how you want it to work. How much of an effect you want. Do you want a very subtle effect, or do you want really a very obvious effect? Now, in some dance styles, you really want a very obvious effect because it's part of the sound. But in some cases, you probably only want just a little bit of effect. You want it to be pretty transparent. So that's kind of what we're going to do tonight. Bobby says, I got the Waves and the Plug-in Alliance ones. Yes. Well, I mean, that's the cool thing. You can kind of compare and contrast and figure out which one you think is the closest to the SSL actual sound. So maybe comparing the Waves with the Plug-in Alliance ones and the actual SSL plugins would probably be a really good little shootout you can do if you've got the cash to splash to do it. Then I would say, yeah, go for it. And maybe do that. I don't know if Dave Vignola's done that. I know that for a while he was doing a lot of videos where he's doing plug-in shootouts. So I don't know whether that's one of the things that's on his radar to do or not. Right, hold on a sec. Alrighty. So if you're ready to look at sidechaining, it's 1:15. Let's get into it. So let me go and press that button and press that button. Okay, so you don't have to look at my ugly mug anymore, which is probably better for you. Hang on just a second. Now this is where I have to be a little bit careful not to bash my chair into the desk. Okay, so as you can see, let me get my mouse onto the right screen. As you can see, I've set up two channels. I have Impact and I have Mai Tai. I'm going to mute Mai Tai for a minute and you can have a listen to what we've got going on Impact. I'm going to just close that and go over there. All right, have a listen to this. Okay, pretty standard kind of ish, dance-ish groove thing that I just knocked together in the space of about 2 minutes using Impact. And actually that little kit is really quite cool. And then I've got, like, as you can see here, just a really, really long tone on the Mai Tai. So if I was to mute the drums and get Mai Tai going, this is what you get. It's just a long tone, not very interesting. But here's the thing: if I bring the snare drum and the hi-hats back in just for a second, they are not ducking. But watch what happens if I do this. Alright, so now we've got that kind of throbbing bass that happens on the upbeat, and it's all created out of just this, just a long tone, and then using the sidechain to basically close the gate on the Mai Tai every time the kick drum hits. So every time the kick drum hits, it closes off the gate for the Mai Tai, and when the kick is not playing, it opens it up. Now, because the kick is playing on every quarter note, on every downbeat, then that means that when you set it right, which I'll show you in just a minute, the Mai Tai is opening up on the upbeat, which creates this nice little groove, this nice little interplay between the kick drum and the bass sound. And that's where the groove is created. It's a combination of, you know, the kick drum and the snare drum, and then this throbbing bass sound. So Bobby says, very cool. Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So let me show you what I've got set up on the gate, and then I will take all of this apart and you can see how it's all done. So the secret sauce is in these controls here and this control here, the hold. So you set the release and the attack and release to the fastest possible settings, and then the secret sauce really is in this open and close threshold and the range knob here as well, and the hold knob, and it's a combination of those 4 buttons, and you just basically dial these in by ear until you get it pulsing when you want it to pulse. That's the secret. Okay, so now that you've seen that, and then I've got a pre-fader send at 0 dB going to the input of the gate. There you can see the sidechain thing is highlighted. Alright, so let's take all of these off and let's set this up from scratch. So let's get rid of that and let's get rid of that. Okay, now we have a blank canvas. Let's get rid of the solo. So how are we going to set this up? So the first thing you want is the gate, obviously, on the Mai Tai. So let's go get the gate. And we'll stuff it on there. And as you can see, everything defaults to -40. Fast attack, 80 millisecond release, pretty fast. And then 50 millisecond hold. And you just leave those just for now. And then the next thing you need to do is close that guy. And then you go to the send section of the kick drum. This is the kick drum here. We know that because if I solo it, there we go. I could label these tracks. Probably should have, but haven't. It would make things a lot easier if I'd done that. So impact stereo 1 is the kick drum. Stereo 2 is the snare drum. Stereo 3 is the crappy little, trashy little hi-hat sound. And we're not using any of the other channels. So this is what we have. So what we want to do is we want this guy here, this kick drum, to trigger the gate closing, so that the long tone of the Mai Tai is shut off every time the kick drum hits. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, so I'm going to take you through this slowly because I know that this can be quite confusing, but actually it's so quick and so easy to set up. So the first thing you do is you hit the add send button here, and when you do that, this little drop down appears. So you have main, you have sidechain, then you can add a bus or you can add effects channel. We don't want to do any of those. We want to do a sidechain. So we grab the sidechain. The only thing available for sidechaining is the insert, which is the gate on the Mai Tai. So we select that. We change this to pre-fader. The reason why I changed that to pre-fader is because if I am ever in a position where I've got loads more tracks and I'm ready to mix this tune, I want to be able to adjust this without actually adjusting the level of send to the gate. So I'm doing pre-fader and I'm going to do a 0 dB. So I'm going to control click that. I mean, you can chuck it to full on like that, or you can hang on. You can just have it as 0 dB. Doesn't really matter too terribly much. You can slam it, or you can have it to 0 dB. Doesn't really matter. I had it slamming before. I'll put it at 0 dB this time. Why not? Alright, so now that we've set that up, we now need to set up the gate. So we open the gate, we set that in edit mode, and now you can see the little sidechain box is lit up, whereas it wasn't before. So now we need to dial these guys in until we get it pulsing as we want. So, and I just smacked my nose into the microphone. Just Bob says, in my above statement, I was using the sidechain within the compressor. Must be a little different when used. Just Bob says, this will be cool. Played around the sidechain the other day for a bass track. It's interesting. Kind of sounds like it pulled and separated the bass out of the mix a little bit and gave it its own space. Yep, certainly does that. Woodbeast is here. In fact, I haven't said hello to anybody yet, but I'm going to do that as soon as this is done, okay? And Deer Creek is here as well. And yes, we're talking sidechain. And you did a video on this, Chris. I'm aware of that. Using a compressor. Well, this time I'm using a gate to demonstrate pretty much the same thing. But I'm using a gate this time because it's a slightly different technique for a different purpose. So it's just another way in which you can sidechain something to something. Okay, I mean, there's probably a bajillion different things that you can sidechain. If you're really into dance and EDM, you will sidechain lots of different things for lots of different purposes. Anybody here who is into that kind of style of music and does a lot of sidechaining, you will know this stuff by like the back of your hand, and you'll know a whole bunch of different methods and different applications for sidechaining. Nice spoonerism. Love EDM, kick me now. Okay, I'll kick you right in the butt. Here we go. Let's set up this this little guy here. It's kind of straight away doing what I want. But here's what happens. If I turn the range to 0 dB, nothing is going to come through. You can have it just a little bit, or you can have it really, really full on. Now notice, the more you adjust the hold, the more out of time it goes. Now it's not really at all where I want it to be. And then if you adjust these guys as well, it makes a difference. See, that's gone out of time now. Now it's fully open all the time. And there you have it. It's dead easy to set up. I mean, that kind of throbbing, pulsing bass thing is so well used in dance music, and you know, that just takes just a few seconds to set up. It really is that simple. So there really is no reason for bafflement over sidechaining, because, you know, really the technique to sidechaining is all done for you over here in the send section. You know, you just need to choose the input of whatever it might be. That's all you need to do. So whatever plugins you've got, if you've got loads of EQs, loads of compressors and all of that going on, then really the secret sauce is finding the right input for the right thing that you want to trigger. And that really is all there is to it. And Woodby says, yeah, it is a trigger. That's all it is. Decrease says, gets my blood moving, getting out my gonna get out my dancing shoes. Okay, just so long as we're not seeing that, that's okay. No, I'm only kidding. And that really is all there is to it with sidechaining. There's nothing really complicated about it. But you know, you can make it as complicated as you want to. You can sidechain a high pass filter if you want to. You know, if you've got a particular reason to have a high pass filter sweeping, you know, maybe you've got an automated high pass filter sweeping, and you want the kick drum to trigger some kind of sweeping effect using the high pass filter. Then yeah, you could probably set something like that up. I wouldn't know how you do it, but you could. Woodby says, DCA, is that like blockchaining? Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know what the DCA does. I just kind of leave that as it is. But one of the things that I don't know if you could see it there. but in the gate, you see over here in this external sidechain section, you see the duck thing is lit up, and that's the setting you want, and it kind of defaults to that. But you can also use the gate for triggering a different sample as well. So if you're wanting to replace a kick drum, you can do that just using this guy and just choose the MIDI input that you need. You know, that's actually something else that's quite useful that you can use the gate for, replacing a drum sample. You know, if you have a snare drum that just sounds like, hey, this is recorded really badly, it sounds like they're hitting a biscuit tin lid. Okay, find another sample that you can trigger via impact or something like that, and you just set up this trigger, and you set up the MIDI note that you want to trigger every time the audio snare drum that was recorded is hit. That's, I think Jonny has done a live stream devoted to this, so that's fairly straightforward and standard to do. LFO tool, oh yeah, I'll check that out for sure. Like I say, this really isn't my style of music at all. Dance music. I'm a jazz guy, but I also record all sorts of other acoustic music as well. So some folk music, chamber orchestras, choirs, that kind of stuff. That's a lot of the stuff that I record and mix and master. So, you know, there is no reason in a folk situation to sidechain anything, let alone compress very much. So, so, you know, it is what it is. It's not really something that I do an awful lot, but this was something that I had to learn all about, because earlier last year I was working with a client of mine who was doing sort of like a fusion record, and it was a fusion of kind of dance, you know, kind of Ibiza style club dance with funk, 70s funk. So it was a crossover of those two styles. So I had to learn about sidechaining and that kind of stuff, because I don't do it. Why would I ever need to do sidechaining? So I learned this from listening to a few Ministry of Sound records and go, oh, that's how they get the, you know, that pulsing effect. They must be sidechaining a compressor. So at first I was doing it sidechaining a compressor and setting the compressor pretty aggressively. But then I thought, surely there's a better way in which I can control the you know, the release time so that it releases in time with the upbeat. And I could do it with a compressor, but I thought, can I not use a gate? Because if I used a gate, I could maybe control it a little bit more precisely, control the tempo so that it always comes up on the upbeat eighth note. And so I tried it out. I tried it out with the gate, and as you can see, it just works so beautifully, so easily. And it just, you know, it opens and closes exactly the right point in time, and it doesn't change. It doesn't change time. So, you know, I mean, it's not synced to the tempo or anything, but it is just a case of you find the right position for this hold here. And you know, the opening and closing thresholds, and you always set these guys as fast as you can get them to go, basically. And then you use the hold and the threshold knobs here to kind of get to the right rhythm. Once it's at the right rhythm, you're good. Leave it. So there you go. Sidechain your keys with your mic when doing live streams, radio fashion style. Now there's an idea. I would have to do that on the inputs in Studio One, because I don't have Fat Channel DSP, so that's going to be a bit of a no-go, unfortunately. Just Post says DCA right, but in its send it's labeled as sidechain. Oh, gotcha. All right. Because you're sidechaining the gate, you could replace the gate with an EQ or a compressor. Yes, you absolutely could. Woodbeast says, would be cool to sidechain my wife. Yeah, Woodbeast, if you're into that kind of thing. Maybe. To the kitchen sink, possibly. Let's leave that one there. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. And I realized that I was not sharing the screen when I should have been. Sorry about that. Okay, so we are at 35 minutes past the hour, so let's get your questions. I'm sure there's not very many people in here because this is a little bit of a last minute thing. You delete, not sidechain. You guys are having a good laugh. Alright, so I'm going to take a pause and take a drink of tea, and then you guys can get your questions in. So we've got 23 people in this. Not bad at all. I think we broke a record, actually, on the last show. I think we had 35, which was amazing. Never had that many people before. So I think a lot of people would expect that we'd be doing the show tomorrow, but because of the Super Bowl, yeah, I'm aware that viewers are going to be down, so I don't really see the value of doing a show. Dickory says, enjoyed the show with Vatcher. Yeah, shame about the delay that we had going on on Skype. Excuse me, I just inhaled my tea. Sorry about that. Yes, it's a shame that we had a delay going on with Skype. I think that's to do with the software that he was using to capture the audio from Skype, and I think it was basically just being monitored twice. I think that was the issue. So we had latency, I think, is what we're experiencing there. The delay was tolerable. Yeah, it kind of was. Rainer is away. See you next week. Yes, we'll be back on Sunday, Rainer. Okay. Yeah, so I did an interview with my good friend Vatcher over at Recording Studio 9 down in Australia, Sydney, Australia. He's a great guy. I've known him for maybe a couple of years and been chatting to him off and on over the course of that time and getting to know him, and kind of just discovered that we had a whole bunch of shared interests, and we just hit it off pretty much straight away. And he had this idea, hey, why don't I interview you and kind of, especially now that you've just gone past 2,000 subscribers, wouldn't it be a cool idea if I interview you and then we can clue each other's subscribers into each other's channels? And I said, that's a great idea. So the interview itself, I think, was really good. I think it worked out really well. Vatcher did a great job on the edit. Yeah, it's just a shame about the wee delay, but I got to tell my story of how I got into music and music production in particular, and how I kind of fell into a professional career in music, which is cool because, at one point I was kind of looking at pursuing a career as a professional sportsman, wanting to maybe go and play cricket professionally, and a combination of me didn't take me too long, but fairly quickly realizing that I was probably not quite good enough to make the professional grade at cricket. I mean, I was good. I was a good bowler. I was a rubbish batsman, but I was also a darn good fielder. So I was good. I just don't, I wasn't good enough to play at the top, county levels. I played at minor county level, but not in the major county divisions, and so I was just not good enough to play at that level. And of course, then, whilst playing cricket, my knees gave in, and that was the end of that. So that was the end of any hope of playing cricket, very much more than a few games for a village club or something like that, which is what I did for a good few years, until maybe about 2006, when my knees basically told me, look, you're being stupid. So I stopped playing altogether. But yeah, so I got into professional music in the into the late 1980s, beginning of the 1990s, and then got into mixing in the 1990s as well. So I've been doing this a lot of years, a lot of years, and so it was really great to talk to him. Let's see. Good. Kirk is here. He says, "Good choice on subject matter. I'm just teaching myself about compression just lately." Awesome. Yeah, I've got a video series as I've got a video series on compression, which if you're a subscriber to my email list, you can actually have those outside of YouTube. They do exist on YouTube, but you can actually download the videos and have them to keep forever, so that you can actually play them advert free on your media player of choice. So there you go. And it teaches all the basics of compression. So there you go. Just Bob says, when I put my gate into sends, it's labeled as gate. Sidechain is in a drop-down menu. That's what I was asking about. That is correct. That's exactly where it is. That's exactly where you find it. When you're in... hang on, let me just close this guy. When you're setting it up, you go into the sends here. You do add send, and then there's a little drop-down here for sidechains, and then whatever plugins you have instantiated on anything, pretty much all of them will come up, and you just need to pick the right one. And now in this case we've only got one plugin, so it's dead easy. But if you've got quite a lot of plugins, then you need to make sure you pick the right one. To be honest, so yeah, so in this case we're choosing the Mai Tai and the insert, and there is one insert on that channel, and it's the gate. So if there were other inserts on there, on that channel as well, we would have those options there as well. So in this case it's dead easy because there's only one plugin to deal with. But if there's lots and lots, then you're going to have to kind of search through a list until you find the right one. So there you go. And once you've got that set up, then you adjust the plugin on the channel that you want to affect. In this case, the Mai Tai. You adjust these settings here. You don't adjust anything on this guy because they won't affect anything on your sidechain. Okay, so I hope that is maybe a little bit clearer. Orange says, could you set up a sidechain that would open and close, say, a reverb effects, but maybe trigger from the kit? We could certainly try that. I don't know how it'd open and close a reverb. Don't know how we would do that. But we could maybe try something like that. Let's see if we could improvise something out of nothing. Let's find a reverb. Let's see. Let's go room reverb. What are we gonna sidechain? Should we put a reverb on? Yeah, let's put a reverb on here as well. Although that's actually, no, let's not do that, because that's actually going to have the same. The sidechain is affecting the gate, which I think might also affect the. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Okay. No. Let's actually try that. Let's actually try putting this on here, and we'll not set it quite that long. We'll maybe set it that long. Yeah, that'll do. And let's see if we can set up another sidechain. Sidechains. Oh, it's only giving us the one sidechain. That's interesting. It's only giving us the gate as a sidechain. I wonder why that is. That is curious. All right. Well, let's maybe put that down there. Maybe get rid of that. Let's see if we can sidechain anything else. No, it's only giving us the Mai Tai as a sidechain. That's interesting. So I can't sidechain a reverb and a gate at the same time. That is interesting. I don't know. No, I don't know how that's going to work, because it only gives us the gate as a sidechain option. I wonder why it's only giving us the one. I can send to the room reverb, but I can't sidechain it. I don't think. Maybe I have to do... maybe that's because there's no sidechain available in the room reverb. That's why. That is why it is not listed, because you can't do it with a reverb. That explains that. Okay. Remove. Bye-bye. So that answers that question. I don't think you can do that. Why would you want to sidechain a reverb anyway? Yeah, that's a good question. Why would you want to sidechain a reverb anyway? I can't think of a scenario where I'd want to do it personally. But you never know. It's, you know, there might be a reason for it. Someone might have a reason for it. I just don't know. But yeah, it would seem that you can't sidechain a reverb. So there we go. Sorry about that. If there is a way to do it, I don't know what it is. Yeah. Sorry. If any of you guys in the chat have a way to do it, then please do. Please do suggest something. Decrease says, got to feed Buster and his girlfriend. Watch the end in the reruns. Okay, cool. Have a good night, Deer Creek. You guys are talking about shaving. Whoopi says render. Render what? I don't know. DUP chain, what's that? I have no idea what that is. Okay, so there we go. That's that. Any more questions? Actually, whilst we're here on the show tonight, which is totally unplanned, by the way, I don't think Kelly is here. But Kelly, if you do watch this on the replay, and I hope you do, and I will try and message you and point you to it, I must say a big thank you for this. Kelly sent me this in the mail. It's one of his very cool Burlap Studio pens that has his address on it and everything else. But it's very cool because not only do you have a very, very nice pen that writes really, really well made pen, but it also has a light on it, which is very cool if I'm wanting to see something which is a little bit kind of hidden away underneath here on my mixer, or if I just want to do this, I can do that and light my face up in a kind of spooky way, which doesn't really work with all this lighting. But yeah, it's very cool. And this is also very, very cool when I'm coming home late at night in the dark and I can't see the where to put the keyhole, where to put the key in the keyhole in the front door, because it's really, really dark on our side of the street. And it's really hard to see what you're doing. So I just whip this out of my pocket, turn on the light, and I can see what I'm doing. It's perfect. So thank you, Kelly, for that. That's very cool. Okay. Any more questions, folks? Orange says to open and close a huge room on, say, a kick for EDM. Yeah, I don't think there is a way to do it. to be honest. At least I haven't come up with one. I mean, we could get rid of this sidechain here. Let's remove that one, and let's get rid of the gate. Yeah, I don't know. I would really like to be able to sidechain a reverb so that you can cut off the reverb when the kick hits, but I don't think you can. There appears to be no way to do it. Even if I was just to set up an effects channel and grab the room reverb and put that on there. See, there's no sidechain button, so you can't sidechain the reverb because there's no sidechain button, so there's no input into the room reverb. Whether that's kind of deliberate, I'm not really entirely sure. But you can do it. Because even if I try and add another sidechain, it doesn't give me an option to. It only gives me the gate, which has got a sidechain possibility. So the room reverb is a no-go. Now I could, I suppose, do something else. I could sidechain something else at the same time. You know, I don't know. I could set up a compressor or something, or an EQ or something. I maybe could probably sidechain an EQ to trigger a filter or something. Yeah, there's a sidechain option there, so I could like high pass like that, and I could set up another one. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. There we go. I've got another sidechain option there. That pre-fader as well. I don't know what this is going to do exactly. I've never done this before. All that does is thin out. Yeah, that's not really having a whole lot of an effect, really. But there, that was a thought though. Mike says, as a general rule, you don't really reverb low instruments anyways. Why would you reverb a kick or a bass guitar? It's just something I don't do because it always sounds like crap. Yeah, I kind of go with that as well, because, you know, if you have low end going into a reverb, it just clouds and gets muddy very quickly. So I think you're right. Not sure why I would want to do it. If I'm going to do like a massive sort of explosion style kick at the end of a song, I've done that before, but I didn't do it with a sidechain. I just did it as an event effect. I just have like the last kick drum at the very end of the song, kind of like everything else finishes, and you just got one big kick drum at the end of the song that just goes boom with a massive, great big, almost never-ending reverb. But yeah, may work if you take off the gate. Yeah, I kind of tried that. Let's bring that back in, and let's turn off the gate. Let's see what that does. Nah. No, I don't really see how it's really going to be effective without the gate on. So So no, I don't really think that that works too terribly much. But it was worth a shot. It was worth a try. So there we go, folks. Sidechaining. Dead easy in Studio One. Anybody should be able to do that. And set it up relatively quickly. Now, there are probably a whole bunch of other applications where you could sidechain an EQ. I don't really appear to have been able to do that. And that's possibly just, I just don't know how to do it. It's entirely possible because I don't work in dance music, so I don't know how to do those kind of things. But I'm always up for learning. So we've got about 5 minutes left, guys. Mike says, I'm probably wrong. I seem to have that problem lately. Yeah, nonsense. Nonsense. Not at all, Mike. I think in this instance, I agree with you. For sure. For sure. Having lots of low end going into a reverb, I think is a bad idea. Because it just clouds and clouds and clouds and builds up. You know, you don't want lots, you know, low end has a lot of energy to it, and if you have a lot of energy going into a reverb, it just, you know, it just gets really very, very rumbly, and it's very hard to get rid of unless you high pass filter the reverb, which is something I do also for that very reason. So what I tend to do with reverbs, I'll just show you this, is I tend to put an EQ after the reverb on the effects channel, and this is the curve I tend to put on it. I tend to roll that up to kind of almost like 250, 300, and then I'll roll off some of the highs as well. You know, because quite often I'm using a reverb to make something darker and make something sit back in the mix. So for example, if I have a whole bunch of backing vocals in a song, I want the backing vocals to have clarity so you can discern what's being sung, but I also want them to sit further back from the lead vocal. Now granted, you can do that with a faster attack compressor, absolutely you can, but also at the same time you can deal with that spatially by running them through their own ambient effects chain with a reverb and an EQ, and roll off a lot of the top end of that reverb. So the reverb is not bright, it's dark and it's thin, and that way it's only the mids that are going through the reverb. The lows and the highs are not going through the reverb. And then so by the amount that you control of those backing vocals going into the reverb, you can have these vocals set back a little bit in the mix so they kind of surround the lead vocal, which is what you want. So whereas for a lead vocal, if I was going to use a reverb on a lead vocal, which I don't really do, but if I was going to, I wouldn't roll off the highs. I would keep the highs present. I would still roll off the lows, but I wouldn't roll off the highs. I might even boost the highs just a little bit so you get a little bit of sparkle out with the reverb. But, you know, that's one of the things that I do with reverb. Okay? So there you go. That's a little bonus demo. That's kind of 2 for 1 day. All right, so Bobby says, well learned that you can use the gate to trigger drums and now use it to sidechain. There you go. Orange says, by the sound of it, that's not at all true. Peace Valley Audio, the mixes you're putting up sound great. Yep, I totally 100% agree. Mike's mixes are fantastic, and he regularly does himself down about what he does, but he really does do a fantastic job of mixing. He knows his stuff. He really does, and actually he's good at teaching what he knows as well. So please, I encourage everybody, go to his YouTube channel and check out the videos that he has up there, because they are very, very good. He's done some really good videos on using virtual drums and other virtual instruments, and how you can multi-out drums from a virtual drum instrument so that you can have them available as audio stems for mixing. That video series in particular is really, really good. And he's done a few others now, so definitely go check out his channel. Go and get yourself over there and subscribe to his channel. It's well worth it. So there you go, Mike. And Bobby says, we are our own worst critics. You're absolutely right there. You're absolutely right there. You know, I often have a little moment's hesitation before, you know, once I've accepted client work and they send me the stems and I bring the stems into Studio One, I always have that little moment where I'm sat there staring at the stems going, am I really good enough to do this? And then I have to kind of put that out of my mind and just go, let's just get this done. And the client will judge. The client will decide whether it's good enough. I just need to put out my best mixing chops and bring all of my years of experience to bear on this mix. And if the client likes it, the client likes it. And if they don't, they don't. Somebody else will hire me. So you have to have a pretty thick skin to get on in the music industry, whichever part of the music industry you're in. You have to have a pretty thick skin. You know, over the years, I have regularly been told, you're a terrible drummer. You're a terrible piano player. You can't sing. You're useless. Rubbish. You know. Or, no, you don't know. You don't know what you're doing mixing. Yeah, you don't know what you're doing. Your songs are crap. I once was told that my music would be good enough for being used in third-rate porn movies. That was a genuine criticism from somebody once. They said, your music is good enough for third-rate porn movies. And you know what? That particular individual thought that he was the next big thing. He thought he and his band were going to go a long way. They didn't. They made one record and then they were gone. And here I am, all these years later, a lot of years later. I'm still working, and they're doing other day jobs and aren't even involved in the music business anymore. So, you know, you just have to learn to laugh it off. And, you know, the ones that criticize you the most are usually the ones that are on the way down the ladder whilst you're on the way up. And, you know, you'll pass a lot of people that have that kind of attitude. As they're sliding down the ladder, you're climbing up one rung at a time. And you're getting ahead of them every single time. And they're sliding down faster than they know is healthy. And so you just have to laugh it off and have confidence in your experience, have confidence in your skills and what you've learned, and that you can put what you've learned into practice. And so there you go. And yeah, it's pretty terrible. It's pretty hurtful when somebody says your music is only good enough for third-rate porn movies. It's not nice. It's very upsetting. It's very hurtful. Fortunately, I know better. You know, I know better. I've had my music used in TV shows. I've had my music played on radio. I've had my music played on radio a lot, actually. You know, I've appeared on film scores as a session musician. I've played on hundreds of records over the years, mostly from my studio here without ever having to leave it. I've played on a lot of records, and I've mixed a lot of records, and I've had happy clients at the end of it who have gone on to come back for their next record and book me. Some have actually booked me straight away and said, right, we're done with this project, you know, 6 months time, we're going to start the next one, you're booked. And they put down the deposit money. When that happens, you know that you're doing the right thing, and you know that you're in the right place, and you know that you're good at what you do. And that's what you have to focus on. And even when people say, you suck, just remember that for every one person that says you suck, there are probably 50 other people that think you're fantastic. And that's the important thing. I have you guys over here, and you guys in my chat over here, and I have my 2,000 subscribers, and I have my friends all over the music industry who appreciate what I do, and that's what matters to me. You know, people that say those kind of hurtful things about me, they don't matter. And that's just the way you have to play it. Just Bob says, I've seen third-rate porn. It says a lot about that person's character. Certainly does. And that's exactly what I thought at the time. There were two things that went through my mind instantly when that person said that. The first thing I thought is, what the heck are you doing watching third-rate porn? Are you an idiot or something? And then the second thing I thought was, it says a lot about what you think about music. Actually, and what you think about your own music. So, at the end of the day, you know, time is the one that tells you who is successful and who isn't. As I say, you know, this band doesn't exist anymore. They made one record that didn't sell too terribly well. They built a small following, and then they just disappeared. They don't work anymore. They're all doing different day jobs now, so they're not even involved in music particularly. So, you know, and here I am making a professional living as a professional mix engineer, session musician. You know, who's the one that's had the success? Me. So, you know, I can laugh about it now. And, you know, I could laugh about it very shortly after that person said what they said, because I thought, well, it says a lot about you, doesn't it? That you've actually watched third-rate porn and, in sufficient detail that you can comment on the quality of the music. So there you go. But those people shall remain completely and utterly anonymous, because it wouldn't be fair otherwise. Anyway, we are 7 minutes over time, and I didn't really want to get into a little soapbox moment there, but it just kind of happened. So if that was not to your liking, I apologize. So anyway, thanks, folks. Orange says, hungry kids are circling, may need a bigger boat. Just Bo says, great information with sidechaining tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bobby says, when I was growing up, my father kept telling me that I was dumb, so trying to get rid of that sometimes, but it's very hard. Yes, it is. When people say stuff like that to you, negative stuff, you know what? It's, you know, the more they say it, the more the inclination within you grows to believe what they say, rather than to stand firm with your feet planted firmly in the truth about what you really know about yourself, what you really know about who you are. You know, when people start saying that stuff to you, it's lies. I've yet to meet a really, really, actually, genuinely dumb person. You know, there are people that act dumb, and there are people that do dumb things. But it's actually really rare to come across somebody who is actually just genuinely dumb, stupid. So, there you go. That's my opinion. So, I will say, with that in mind, folks, I'm going to bid you all a very good night, and I want to thank you all very much for coming out. I know that we were kind of a little bit lower on numbers than we ordinarily would. Super Bowl weekend, I get that. Next week, we'll be back to normal with Sunday Night Live, back on Sundays, not on Saturdays. So, remember that. Also, this Wednesday, it will be a very special edition of Songwriting Simplified with me and Jonny Lipsham over on his YouTube channel, the HST Livestreams channel. It's going to be very special because the Home Studio Trainer Support Group just passed its 4th year. So we're probably going to have some kind of little celebration of that in the course of that show. So there you go. There's a couple of things for you guys to look out for. If you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you will get notified when my next videos go out. And that's usually going to be on Thursdays this year. On Thursdays, I'm going to have videos going out. Whether I'm in the studio or on holiday, a video will go out as close to a Thursday as I possibly can get them. That's the plan for this year, to have a video out every week for the whole year on a Thursday. So there you go. And I'm going to keep doing my Sunday Night Lives for as many weeks of the year as I possibly can as well. So until next time, folks, I will see you on Wednesday, and the next video on Thursday, and on Sunday next week. Good night, folks.